Hello, my name's Paul Woods. I'm Director of Finance and Resources at Newcastle City Council. Cabinet's met to agree draft budget proposals so that we can give a 10-week consultation period to enable the public to have a say about these proposals before the budget's agreed next year. We are facing significant challenges over the next 3 years, and we believe we're going to make £90 million of savings over the next 3 years. That's broadly equivalent to a third of our net budget, which currently is £260 million. In previous years, we've tended to set an annual budget. Each year we make savings, and over the last 4 years we've actually achieved £100 million of savings. Many of those have been able to be achieved through making efficiency savings, many of which are the straightforward and simple efficiency savings that we've been able to make. We realised, looking ahead for the next 3 years, that the 90 million challenge is so great, and most of the efficiencies have already been made, that we have to make really tough decisions about services. Therefore, it is important to look at a medium-term plan view so we can plan properly and consult with the public about the options that we're facing. What hasn't changed is that the Council is required by law to set a balanced budget. We have to do that in March, when we also set the council tax. The biggest reason is the size of the cuts and grants that we're getting from central government. Newcastle faces one of the biggest grant reductions in the country. You can see from the heat map which we've prepared the different sizes of cuts as they appear around the country. The darker the red area, the bigger the cut. And you will see that Newcastle North East has one of the bigger cuts per head of population. So the reduction on our grant in Newcastle is £158 per person. That's roughly double the average around the country. And some parts of the country are receiving very small reductions and are even receiving grant increases, and these are the areas shown in white and green. If Newcastle had actually received the average amount of reduction per person, we would still have been getting an extra £22 million of government grant each year. Clearly that's a very significant impact on our budget. Generally you find that it's places of the country which are suffering the greatest economic and social deprivation that are receiving the biggest cut in grant. No, it's not only government grants that are being cut. The Council also faces a series of other cost pressures. We've tried to show this on the following chart. This is a chart I've called a waterfall diagram. What it shows is the cost pressures are in blue, and there's a number of blocks, and they build up the pressure that the Council's facing. It's about inflation. It's about changes in tax and government legislation. It's about the additional demands that are placed on the Council through numbers of looked after children, numbers of older people increasing, and it's also about the effect of the economic downturn where we lost significant sums of income. Finally, on the right hand side of the chart, you'll see the cut in cash government grant, and together these things form the 90 million, which is the waterfall that you see in the middle of the chart. We've announced job reductions of somewhere between 600 in the first year, rising up to about 1,300 at the end of the 3 years. Of course, as the Council has to shrink its workforce, there is a cost of shrinking the workforce, including redundancy costs, and these are also one of the cost pressures that the Council has to meet. In taking a long-term view about the savings over the next 3 years, the Council has been able to look at some radical options. The first thing we obviously did was to look at whether we could make further efficiencies in support services, back office, management, administration costs, all the things you would expect us to do. And that's the area where we've made some of the biggest savings. However, we've had to look at services. And in looking at services, we've prioritised services in 3 ways. We must protect the most vulnerable in our society. Just to give you an idea about how much we're spending on these areas, we spend over 82 million looking after older people and adults with disabilities and keeping them from harm. We spend over 41 million looking after children, preventing them coming to harm and caring for them. These services are given the highest priority and will therefore face the lowest level of cut. Very often the services are expensive to provide and they form a large part of a budget. What we're finding also is that the number of children and older people needing our help continues to grow. The next priority are those services that help to prevent problems from escalating to the point where they create even more expensive problems for the council, the health authorities or the criminal justice system to resolve. And it makes sense to protect these services to prevent long-term problems occurring. These include services like debt advice, welfare support, homeless advice, work with young offenders and drug and alcohol support. The next highest level of cut are those universal services that everyone will recognise, like bin collection, litter clearing, parks, libraries and leisure facilities. Cuts in these areas will be significant and people will certainly notice a difference. We know that people often feel very passionate about these services in the local area, but we have to strike the right balance in making sure we protect those in greatest need while continuing to provide a service to the wider community. We know that people have things they feel very passionate about, and it's important we hear your views on these issues. It's also important that we hear your views about other ways in which we can make the savings that we have to achieve. We published 85 draft budget proposals, and these bring home the tough decisions that the Council has to make. All of our services are going to be affected. So over the next 3 years, it's likely that all residents will be impacted somehow. It's really important that you let us know how these draft proposals could affect you or your communities. It is not all doom and gloom, and we have got a lot to look forward to, and particularly around our capital programme. Our £418 million capital investment programme plays an important role in improving economic opportunities across all parts of Newcastle. This will help boost the economy over the next 3 years, stimulating growth and generating jobs, and create the assets our city needs for the longer term. This includes improvements to schools, housing, roads, footpaths, and important transport links in the city. It will help create new sites which will encourage businesses to grow and expand. Our hard-fought city deal will create new opportunities for jobs and investment in superfast broadband, improved transport, and sites for business growth and development. For accelerated development zone sites in Newcastle and Gateshead include Science Central, the Stevenson Quarter and the Central Station site, East Plugham Street, Gateshead Quays and the Baltic Business Quarter. And together they're expected to create up to 13,000 jobs over 25 years. All of this will contribute to make Newcastle a working city. The Council is still a big organisation with the scale and influence to help the city's economy recover and grow in the future. You might wonder why we're not using this money, what we call capital investment money, to avoid making cuts to revenue services that we've just announced. This is because capital money is separate to the normal day-to-day spending of the Council. It's funded by specific grants that we get for capital purposes or by borrowing. By law, we're not allowed to borrow for the normal day-to-day services, and we can only borrow for capital investment purposes. Therefore, it's not possible to use this money to save our day-to-day services.
It's really important that you have your say. Remember, these are proposals, not decisions. Our full budget proposals are available on our website at www.newcastle.gov.uk/budget 2016. We want to hear your views on how we can best respond to these cuts. Get in touch and tell us what consequences or impacts might there be as a result of our proposals. What can be done to minimise the impact? And are our proposals a fair and reasonable option? The best way to get involved is to go to the Let's Talk Newcastle website, www.letstalknewcastle.co.uk. Here you can see more about our proposals and share your views online. Or why not come along to one of our Budget 2016 events or attend your local ward committee? Or you can email us at letstalk@newcastle.gov.uk or write to Let's Talk Newcastle, Room 161, Civic Centre, Newcastle, NE99 2BN. Consultation on our draft budget will run until Friday the 1st of February 2013, and councillors will agree a final budget on Wednesday the 6th of March. Please make sure you get in touch and have your say.